Ninja Gaiden Ragebound releases in just a few short weeks and it looks incredible. I am a huge fan of that series and I cannot wait to play this game. The thing is, this is the kind of game I really want to own physically, and that version doesn't come out until mid-September, so like it or not, I gotta wait. As I was scrolling around Steam typing in Ninja, I stumbled upon this game, Ninja Ruin. Currently sitting at 3 Steam reviews, on sale for under $2, clearly an homage to Ninja Gaiden. This game seems like it was made for me. But does it ruin the good name of ninjas, or is it a great appetizer to the impending awesomeness of Ninja Gaiden and Shinobi releases this summer? The story has you playing as a lone ninja trying to defeat a demon king that is threatening all of humanity. Graphics here are, well, they're graphics. You can look at the screen and decide for yourself how to describe them. I'm not much of a graphics guy though. Sure, I'm a sucker for awesome 8-bit sprite work, but if the game is ugly and plays well, I'll still have a good time with it. But the first issue I ran into is the controls. There is no controller support here. Typically not a problem, as I will just use joy to key to assign keyboard prompts to my controller and then just play the game with that. The thing is, this game registered some inputs on my controller and not others, so I had to keep going back and forth remapping buttons to try to make the game run. So for example, I would usually use A to jump. Here, when I programmed A with the jump key, it paused the game every time I jumped. I ran into several annoying things like that, but eventually found the configuration that more or less worked. I can't fault the game for that. The Steam store does expressly state that controllers are not supported, but if you are like me and can't tolerate keyboard controls, it's probably something you should know before you buy. I've used Joy to Key on dozens of games, and this is the first time I've ever experienced something like this. Okay, so let's move past the ugly graphics, let's move past the broken controller, and we're finally ready to dive in. The levels here are just bland. You just run straight, make really easy jumps. Occasionally there's an enemy to swipe at. These dudes pose absolutely no threat. And there's like one type of enemy per stage. They literally just walk around or stand there. They're also very sparse, so there's not really much action here. You get a jump, a sword swipe, and a shuriken that recharges every 5 seconds. I never ran into a situation where my shuriken was not charged when I met a new enemy, meaning there was a minimum 5+ seconds between each enemy. But really, there was probably more than 5 seconds, and the footage you're watching can tell you that. So there are 3 stages. Each ends in a boss battle, and we'll talk about them in a second. But the weird thing is there are a total of 6 stages. The first 3, and then the next 2 are just the boss. And the last level is just a boss rush. It's like the developers just got bored midway through. They didn't want to make any more levels. I guess that's okay, because they weren't the only ones getting bored. So, the bosses here are just annoying. They have patterns that repeat over and over again. So once you know what they're going to do, it becomes pretty easy to dodge their attacks. Most of them have about 3 to 4 cycles of attacks they use, and they always use them in the exact same order, so there are no surprises. But my god, do these guys take a ton of hits to kill. Just look at the footage on how little damage my attacks do. You're just swiping at them forever until they finally die. I didn't think their patterns were terrible, but the long life meters really made each encounter an unnecessarily boring slog, with only this dragon boss here posing any kind of a legitimate challenge with difficult to dodge attacks. There's also pre-boss dialogue before each fight, which of course has to be repeated every time you die. Then the end, you get to the boss rush. Now I would love to tell you how this game ends, but the game is broken, literally unable to be completed. So you get to the last level and there's these 3 doors. I end the first door and there's the first boss waiting for me. Predictably enough, the same exact prefect dialogue happens from the first time we fought and the same exact battle. I beat the boss, but she doesn't die. Her life bar is completely empty, and she became completely impervious to all my attacks. I restarted the game, restarted my computer, same result every time. You need to defeat her in order to get access to the final boss, so there's nothing I can do. I think it should be pretty obvious by now that this game is definitely trash. I really can't think of a single redeeming quality about it. The graphics are poor, controls are broken, level design is horrifically boring, the bosses are all a total slog, and you can't even finish the damn thing because of a game-breaking bug. I know it only costs $2, But honestly, on Steam in this day and age, there's some really quality games for $2, so I wouldn't even say buy it for that price. Definitely stay away from this turd, and I hope you all think of me waiting when you're enjoying Ninja Gaiden Ragebound in a few weeks.